In this episode, we're introducing the unimaginable with 5 dream drives that these owners thought were out of reach, but are now firmly in their driveway. We've got high-performance heroes.
Not very many people get to do something like this in their life.
This is true history. If you restored this car, it'd be like putting eyebrows on the Mona Lisa.
Rare designs.
I'm definitely proud of what I've achieved with this car. It's just a dream come true.
I just knew that this had to be built. People thought I was nuts.
And light-up legends.
There's no truck or car that's to this magnitude.
These 5 cars prove that if you want something bad enough, you can be in that driver's seat. Given that there were only 503 of these 60 supercars ever made, to see a ride as cool as this on the road, it's getting increasingly rare.
This car pulls attention anywhere you go. Even if you don't like cars, you see this thing and curiosity's got you. Look at it. Have you ever seen anything like it? It's like an alien driving down the road. Any angle you see this car, you can't not look at it.
Purchased new in 1969, this 2-door coupe disappeared from sight for over 30 years when it was put into storage back in the early 80s.
This is true history. If you restored this car, it'd be like putting eyebrows on the Mona Lisa. With a Sharpie, it wouldn't be right.
This is the Lost 69 Dodge Charger Daytona.
For the past, I don't know, couple generations, it's all been about restoring whatever's out there because there were a lot of survivor cars. And now, all the survivor cars, they're getting rare. So to find something that's representative of an era that's untouched, that kind of smells the way it did originally, is significant. A car like this is, in my opinion, at least a 6-figure car.
The car was bought new by Ron Smith shortly before he went to Vietnam. When he returned, he drove the car until its deteriorating condition forced him to store it in his pop's garage. There, it gathered dust for decades until he found custom restorer Marshall Woolery to bring it back to its former glory.
I pretty much crapped my pants. I couldn't believe that it was actually a Daytona. The place where it was at is near a lake where I'd been thousands of times, and never in a million years would I guess there was a '69 Dodge Daytona sitting in that little shack next to the house. He actually hired me to do a full restoration, which probably would have cost him in the range of $100,000 to $150,000. And then I explained to him that doing that would actually take away from the value and the history. It only looks like this once. You can't recreate that much time.
The Dodge Charger Daytona was a high-performance, limited edition version of the stock Dodge Charger, modified specifically to win NASCAR races. The car came with a 23-inch tall stabilizer wing and sheet metal nose cone, which replaced the usual upright grille. In 1970, it became the first car to break 200 miles an hour in a NASCAR race.
The perfect amount of wear on the car. It's worn enough to show you that it's got a lot of history, but not so worn as to where it's completely worn out. We take it for granted now that cars last hundreds of thousands of miles. That's not so. When cars like this were built, 100,000 miles was like the end of the world. The technology just wasn't there. They wore out.
Everything mechanical that was bad, we fixed. Didn't replace it, we restored what was there and put it back on the car. We probably put $10,000, $12,000 worth of stuff in it. My normal MO is take it off, sandblast it, clean it, paint it, detail it, and put it back on. In this one, we did absolutely none of that. It was a very archaeological dig. Just clean it off and leave what's there and barely scratch the surface and make sure to maintain what the car is. We rebuilt the master cylinder, the vacuum can was shot. We didn't paint the master cylinder because it wasn't painted from the factory, so now it's going to start getting some surface rust on it. The front disc brakes on this car, they're a really odd disc brake. We couldn't find replacements, so we had to have them all rebuilt, re-sleeved, redone. That's probably the most expensive thing we actually did. The only thing that we replaced that wasn't factory on the car is the front half of the exhaust is all original back to the mufflers, but the mufflers were rotted out and the tailpipes were rotted out, so we got factory-style replacements. They're good copies of what's supposed to be there.
With the work complete, it was time to take the Dodge out for the first time in 30 years.
It was pretty intimidating at first because the things that ran through my mind is, oh, geez, what happens if someone runs into it? But once I got it fired up and out onto the road, give it some gas and kind of sort of spun the tires just a little bit. Actually, if you spun a tire, it's a hell of a lot.
In 1969, Ron paid less than $5,000 for the car, equivalent to around $35,000 today.
The value of the car right now is really, really odd. It's kind of an unprecedented thing. The most expensive one recently sold for $900,000. If it gets in an auction setting with two guys that absolutely have to have it, who knows what the thing would go for.
From a dream of a Dodge to a hands-free hero. Our next ride takes driving remote, but not because of where it drives, because how it drives.
All the people that know about this project think I'm crazy for doing this.
Man, that's not crazy, that's just inspirational.
I'm definitely proud of what I've achieved with this car, and especially the way it functions. It's just a dream come true.
This is the remote control DeLorean.
I saw the first episode of Back to the Future. The movie was definitely a big inspiration for me to start this project. And the idea that Doc controlled the DeLorean with the remote control just always stayed with me. I just had to try it. The building process was pretty hard. I started with the transmitter, one of the most important parts, of course. I made it completely functional. I removed all the old Futaba controls out of the unit and replaced it with modern 2.4 gigahertz transmitters. Then I went to the car. I made a custom remote control system. I took multiple robotic servos and I built them inside the dashboard, and I placed them on the brake pedal, the throttle, a gear lever to the gear shifter. So everything goes robotic together with the transmitter. The entire process took me around 6 months to build it, and another 3 months to make it more safe and reliable.
If you think Bjorn looks familiar, well, you might be right, man. Back in season 1, he impressed us with his original remote control ride.
This is my 2006 Corvette C6, and it's a full-scale remote control car, and I like it a lot. I'm pretty sure there's no other Corvette in the world that controls like this one.
The DeLorean DMC-12 is often considered a rare car, with less than 10,000 rolling off the production line, which means Bjorn's remote control DeLorean is beyond rare. It's a genuine one-off. Combining a movie classic with first-class engineering, Bjorn is born a beauty.
This is the on and off switch. The moment I hit the switch to off, the entire fail-safe system will go on. So that means that the brake will start braking and the throttle will come loose and the car will stop. I can shift the gear lever to reverse drive and back to park. And of course, throttle, ignition, and starting. One of the hardest things to build was definitely the steering, because the steering axle in the DeLorean isn't power steering, so that was a big issue. So I removed the original steering axle from the DeLorean and I replaced it with a power steering from a Opel Corsa and hooked that up to my RC system. And now I can even steer remotely with the Futaba. It's mind-blowing, it's fantastic. The first test drive with this car was pretty scary, I have to admit. But after a couple laps, it felt pretty good, and I got more and more comfortable with it. So now it's fun to do.
It's no surprise that this car turns heads wherever Bjorn takes it.
I have to say that I get more reactions to this car than to the remote control Corvette I've built. Everywhere I go with this car, people just freak out. They just can't believe it's really remote controllable. The people react amazed, incredible. They always take their phones and make pictures and like to record stuff. Yeah, it's a real cool experience in driving this type of car.
From a rad ride that's remote controlled to a serious sounding SUV. Our next ride you'll love the sound of and will light up your imagination immediately.
I've been planning this truck before I even bought it. I did all this myself, I designed it myself, but I didn't want to do what everybody else did.
You can feel the pure passion running through the pipes of this baby.
The happiest was when the subs finally went in with the power. That was a big milestone. Finally, I got the bass we were looking for.
This is Boom X.
I've always had a passion for cars even before I had a driver's license. I always see these lowriders with the booming systems, and that's what I wanted, so that's the goal that I achieved. Every step has its own challenge because there's a lot of stuff that it's not a plug and play. The main features, in my opinion, I have 6 ground zero 15 subwoofers, and there's 24 10s in there right now. There's no truck or car or automobile in the custom world that's to this magnitude.
It's taken TJ 2 years to modify the stock 2000 Chevy Suburban into Boom X, the base machine he always wanted. Not only does it sound good, it looks good too. He cut and stretched this bad boy's fenders, installed a couple of thousand LED lights, and given the truck a custom House of Colors paint job that rocks.
All right, what we got going on here is we have the LEDs and the steering wheel all built in, custom-made steering wheel. What makes these LEDs so special is we pride on the durability and make sure they're the brightest quality that we can find, and also they're individually addressable to do different functions that we program them to do. These speakers are actually so big and heavy, this door probably weighs about at least 300 pounds. Basically, this whole entire setup is set for a super clean look and a great sound, obviously. There's actually tweeters behind each one of these tins that protrude through these speakers. It's extremely loud, but more importantly, as being loud, it's crystal clear like a symphony.
TJ lives for car shows, taking his baby to at least 50 every year, winning prizes wherever he goes.
When I go to a car show, I don't expect to win anything, just because that's not who I am. I'm going there for fun. I get a lot of awards, and I do win a lot, but I really don't like to toot my horn like that at all.
This is sick.
Despite all the acclaim, TJ's got big plans to upgrade this ride.
There's still a couple more stages in this truck that are not done yet, like the back doors. There's actually going to be 12 more 10s going into this truck. I think I'm going to start chroming the undercarriage piece by piece. This build here is almost exactly what I want, so I don't see any time soon it's going anywhere.
The original Mini is considered an icon of 60s British pop culture. Its space-saving front-wheel drive layout and 80% of the car's floor plan being used for passengers and luggage influenced a generation of car makers. And brother, was it small. But this Mini is even more Mini. Customized nearly 40 years ago, this reduced ride is a cut-down classic. Wherever it's shown, it still pulls in the crowds.
I did the original build back in 1983. People thought I was nuts.
It's hard to believe that this compact concept was originally dreamt up at a school.
There was a group of 5 of us, and we were all into cars, and I just knew that this had to be built.
This is Mini Ha-Ha.
I was 19 when I built this. I built a car to use every day, which was its purpose. I was very new to it.
To create his Mini masterpiece, Andy bought a 1964 Mark I Mini for $90.
It's had all the bumper brackets removed all the way around. The boot lid was welded into the panel. This section here is the section that holds the rear subframe. So when I cut it in half, it was cut into 3. It was cut there, and then the 2'7" was taken out, and then this was the second cut line. It's coming up to 40 years old now. It's so strong. The wheelie function on it came about by accident. We were just talking about it one day in the pub, and I tried it in a car park the next week, and it took a little while to perfect it, but if you rev the nuts off of it and let the clutch out really quick, it will lift its back wheels up in the air. It's probably scary.
After using Mini Ha-Ha for a couple of years, Andy sold it to a car museum in Northern Ireland. Unfortunately, the museum closed, and the car changed hands several times, while its condition, it gradually deteriorated. It eventually ended up in the hands of another Andy, Andy Shaw, who has lovingly restored it.
Whenever I first bought the car, it was not in good condition. It just was a rolling chassis, 2 subframes, no glass, no interior, no engine. That was going to be quite a challenge. The shell itself was in really good condition. I stripped the car down to a bare shell and sprayed the whole thing orange. Then we put the graphics on it. If we go around the back here, we can see originally the fuel cap was below the number plate, but I put the filler cap on it here just to put my own touch on the car. And again at the back too, I decided to put on the twin exhaust, which really set the car off. Everything went really well. As far as the restoration goes and how much it cost, I have no idea because it didn't keep the costs. I just wanted to restore the car gradually.
Like 2 proud parents, the Andys are more than happy with how their baby's looking now.
Seeing it like this now it's restored it cheers me up no end. To think someone values my work and my design enough to actually restore it, it's an honour. Thank you.
My long-term plans for Mini Ha-Ha is to let as many people see it as possible because it's been lost for so many years.
It's a fantastic 2-seater. It gets smiles every time it's out on the road.
It's just an amazing piece to look at. Nothing compares to this.
This is the ultimate small car because it's the first, the original, and the best.
From a Mini Squeeze Micro to a luscious Locura. Just because the world tells you something is impossible doesn't mean that you can't pull it off.
Back in the dawn of time, my father told me you could either have a car that was fast in the straightaways or a car that was fast in the corners.
Stick to your vision, and brother, you can make it happen.
I kind of felt like I kind of had a passion for V8s, but I also had a passion for lightweight sports cars. So I did what he said was impossible, and we made both in one.
This is Locura.
The job of the car is to be a lightweight, high-performance, high-powered car. It's easy to drive, it gives you a lot of confidence, it inspires some really daring maneuvers. It's just fun. Everyone that gets out of it has a huge smile on their face. One of the most important features was the weight and weight distribution. We focus heavily on this because whilst weight is important, weight distribution is more important. We kept the car down around 2,000 pounds, even with a V8, and we made the car pretty stout. We didn't skimp out on any of the safety or rigidity because that's equally important. We also made the car tail heavy, so the weight distribution is about 55 to the rear, but this gives it a nice mid-engine car feel. It likes to drive through corners, it's really friendly, really difficult to spin, really difficult to get out of control, and we've tried, believe me.
Luke's fantasy was to create a super light sports car with American muscle power. This meticulously refined ride can go from 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds and can reach speeds of over 200 miles an hour. Its independent suspension is borrowed from race car technology, while the steering system utilizes NASCAR Cup Series components.
kept a medium wheelbase, so it's got a lot of great attributes in tight corners in the mountain roads, but it's long enough to be really nice and stable at high speed. We've managed to get cornering well over a G of side load without any effort, and that's on the street. It makes for a very high-performance car that's really easy to drive by a novice.
You see this baby on the road, you're going to be impressed.
The main thing what it does that every other car I've been around doesn't do is it stops traffic everywhere it goes. If you go to the gas station, it'll take an hour. Everywhere you wants to talk about the car. Everywhere you go, it makes people smile. Nobody's intimidated by it. Nobody's threatened by it. They're just happy to see it and they want to talk about it.
And I bet that feels good, dude.
I just see a lot of people get out of high-performance cars like, yikes, I don't want to do that again. That's too much for me, I don't want it. And never has the Locura done that to anyone. Not very many people get to do something like this in their life, leave something behind.
Man, these rides are bringing something way out and wacky to the party, and I love it. We'll see you next time on Ultimate Rides.